Alrighty, folks, today I'm gonna go through 10 things I cannot live without. Aside from like food and water and air, like other stuff I can't live without. This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Okay, number one, whatever watch I'm wearing that day. So today I have an Omega. This is a James Bond Omega from the last Bond film. Didn't love the film, loved the watch. The watch is fantastic. Check out this band. This is a nice band right here. It's kind of cool because it wears almost formal. So the rule on a formal band is typically you want it to be leather, not metal. But this is durable because it's made of metal, but also it's kind of smooth, so you can wear it as a formal watch, even though it's not really a formal watch. This is a diver watch. You can tell it's a diver watch because it has the thicker bezel that has times on it. The watches that I tend to wear the most are this one. I have a Rolex Submariner. That was one of my first watches that I bought. I have a Zenith Rolex Daytona, so I wear that one as well. Those are kind of like the three that I wear on a daily basis because I have different levels of watches. I have some like really, really, really nice watches that I wear only upon formal occasions or with a tuxedo or something. And then I have the watches that I'll wear on like an everyday basis. And those ones I wear specifically because if they get dinged a little bit by my kids, I can survive that. Like you don't want to be wearing a Patek Nautilus and then your kid dings it. All right, number two, lightsabers. So I can fight with my kids. So this is like a nightly thing. A typical evening lightsaber fight, it's usually my son doing either blue for Obi-Wan or green for Luke in Return of the Jedi because he has a couple different lightsabers. My daughter tends to do the white dual blade Ahsoka. She likes going for it with both of them. My tiniest daughter, this is the funniest one, the 3-year-old, she screws two of them together and turns them red and goes Darth Maul, which is pretty awesome. She totally cannot wield it. It is significantly longer than she is tall. But it's really fun. I put on Duel of the Fates, and then we all just like fight each other. No mercy, man. Let me just tell you, I destroy my kids when it comes to lightsaber fighting.
There's any ground rules?
Yeah, I mean, no hitting people in the face. If somebody says stop, you have to stop. I try to have them take turns because if it's too many people all at once, then somebody's gonna get hit. There have not been any significant injuries on my watch. I will say that. There were so many friends who were coming over who wanted the lightsabers that I actually bought like a bunch of them. So we have like 9 of them.
Yes, lightsaber.
Oh yeah, like we have kids come over and it's like their favorite thing in the entire world. We're like, okay, go upstairs and have a lightsaber fight, and everyone has a lightsaber. And then if they wreck each other and their parents are okay with it, that's just the way it's gonna go. I try to teach my kids some of the moves, like spinning around or like the jump attack.
You always say hello there before you go?
Yeah, hello there. Yeah. Number 3, violin. So I don't practice as much as I should, but I do love the violin that I got. It took me years and years and years to get a truly nice violin. Like a mid-range nice violin is very expensive. Like think car expensive. For years and years, I played on my grandfather's violin, which was like a cheap piece of crap. It's harder to play. Like a nice violin is in fact easier to play, but you'd only be able to tell that if you can actually achieve a certain level. It's not like it'll make somebody who's mediocre sound amazing. It'll make somebody who's good sound better than they are, and somebody who's great sound better than they are. My violin was made by a violin maker called Oreste Martini. I'm totally botching his name, I'm sure. The violin was made in like 1948. It's a beautiful instrument, really, really nice instrument. But aspiration, one day I want to, find like a Guarneri. And I have played a Strad, by the way, and they are unbelievable. Number 4, my phone, and of course my laptop. They asked me what kind of laptop I wanted, and I was like, the one with the biggest screen so that I can actually see all the things that I need to see while I'm doing the show. So I'm using this constantly. I'm constantly writing, I'm constantly searching on the internet, I'm constantly using it for the show. Same thing with the phone, although I don't have X/Twitter on the phone. One of my wife's best recommendations, take that off your phone, because otherwise you're just gonna be searching it all day long.
The world needs less Facebook and more face-to-face.
So the phone is mainly used for just communications. The most used apps would be like WhatsApp, Signal, text messages from Kelly. We'll get to Kelly later. And as always, if I have a phone and I have a laptop, I'm not going to use them without ExpressVPN because, let's be honest, your data is your business, my data is my business. No business of yours what I'm searching for, no business of big tech what I'm searching for, no business of the government what I'm searching for. You need to check out ExpressVPN and protect yourself the same way that I protect myself on all of these devices. It is deeply important because, again, they make money off of you. Why would you let them make money off of you while they censor you? So ExpressVPN is my big go-to when I'm using the phone or when I'm using the laptop. You should check them out at expressvpn.com/BenYT. Again, that's expressvpn.com/BenYT. They'll anonymize all of your internet use. They'll make sure that people can't see what you are doing or monetize your web traffic while they are simultaneously attempting to, give all your information to the government or to advertisers. Go check them out right now at expressvpn.com/BenYT. If you, like me, use your phone and laptop a lot, I'm assuming that you're a human, and so that's probably the case. You should check out expressvpn.com/BenYT right now. It's expressvpn.com/BenYT. Okay, fifth thing, all Jewish items. We're going to stick this in like one giant box, just like a bunch of it, right? So I've got my kippah, which is on my head pretty much all times except when I'm in the shower, the pool, or sleeping, which is to remind you that God is above you. And also, theoretically, you only have to wear it when you're saying blessings over food or other items. Traditional Jews wear it all the time. Yeah, here it is. This is what the kippah looks like when it's not on the top of my head. Behold it in all of its round glory. Every morning I've got my tallis and my tefillin. The tallis is what you see in all the photographs of people at the Wailing Wall wearing like the white kind of cloak. And it's got tzitzit at the end of it, which are the fringes that are talked about in the Bible. They're supposed to wear on a four-corner garment. So I've got my tallis. I have my tefillin, which are phylacteries in English. No one knows what phylacteries are, except for the Orthodox Jews who still use them. So when Christians read phylacteries, they're like, of course, phylacteries. And then they have no idea what the hell a phylactery is. But that's the stuff you wrap around your arm, and you wrap it in a certain way, and you have it on your head as well, because it says in the Bible that you're supposed to bind it on your hand, and also between your eyes. And between your eyes, technically, we say is like between but up, right? So that's why we wear it up here. So that's like the davening gear. So use that every morning for the first prayer of the day, Shacharis. In this basket, you also have to put like the Torah. So the people ask me what is the book that I rely on the most. There's no question it is the Bible. It is the book I know the best. Like all Orthodox Jews, I go through it at least once a year in completion, which means that at this point I've gone through it at least 30 times, and then I go through it more than that. The Bible, it's good. Number 6, Boll and Branch makes an Afghan blanket. This thing is unbelievable. I'm not just saying this because Boll and Branch is a sponsor. It is just that good. It is awesome. When I say that this thing is like so good that I travel with it, I'm not lying. I'm not making that up. That's an actual thing that I do. I fold it up and I bring it with me to hotels. I find sheets hard to sleep in. They're not breathable enough and they tend to weigh on me. I just don't like them. I sleep with this thing every night. It's great. It's breathable. Highly recommended. It's just that good. Number 7, my family, of course. So I've said for many, many, many years that there are two types of people. There are family people and there are friends people. They're not the same type of people. I'm a family person, which means that I have lived my entire life within like a mile of my parents. I married my wife for 15 years. We have 4 kids. Her parents live close by. I have 2 sisters who live close by. My family is basically the thing that I care about, not only most in the world, maybe the only thing I care about, actually. Without the family, not worth it. The family is the thing. I've never shown a picture of my family on YouTube before. Here they are. Yeah, they're beautiful, aren't they? Number 8. Popcorn. So if you are trying to stay in shape in any serious way, my biggest problem staying in shape is that I get to like 9 p.m. at night and I am hungry.
Get in my belly!
I get hungry late night. We eat dinner with my kids at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. And so I'm not going to bed till like 11 usually, and that's a big gap for me. And so popcorn and water is like a great filling snack that is almost all fiber.
I'll just enjoy this glass of water. I'm stuffed.
Just get some popcorn kernels, take some olive oil, put it in the pot, and then you cover it in the olive oil, turn it up, put a lid on the pot, pop popcorn, put a little salt on it, you're good to go. Popcorn, very, very useful. Number 9, books, all of them. So I mean, the truth is I carry around a book pretty much everywhere. My team was asking me which books I'm currently reading, and I was honestly having a tough time coming up with the names of them because I'm currently reading, I believe, 6 simultaneously.
So nice that I'm going to jot your name down in my book of enchanting, success-filled people that are winning at life.
I'm reading one called The Discoverers, which is about world history. I am reading a book on Indian philosophy. I'm reading a book on Confucianism.
Yeah, we gotta loosen you up.
I'm reading a fiction book by Lionel Shriver. And I'm reading a book that is a Yale doctoral thesis.
Very cool. Very, very cool. That's cool.
I think those are the 6 that are currently on my nightstand. There's more than that on my nightstand, but they're those 6. Finally, number 10 is a human, Kelly. Kelly is my assistant. I literally cannot function without Kelly telling me where to be on an hour-by-hour basis. I realized pretty early on that I'm really, really bad at knowing where I'm supposed to be because if something is not important to me, it just gets wiped from my brain. And so much so that, as all my producers know, they will literally be telling me what I have to say, like in the next 20 seconds, and if I'm not interested, I just will not listen. It's really obnoxious. And so my producers will be like, Ben, did you actually hear me? I'll be like, maybe.
I gotta go. I got an appointment. We're late.
Bye, guys. So those are 10 things I cannot live without, but there's one more, your viewership. Yes, thank you to the audience for making it all happen here at the YouTubes and also when listening to the show or anywhere else you prefer your fine political product. Alrighty, so we are here reacting to what was, in any normal circumstance, a car crash interview by Kamala Harris. Tim Walz was there as her emotional support animal, but he really didn't have any answers for anything. He kind of sat there silently. The entire setup of the interview was bizarre. Dana Bash did a horrifyingly bad job. She would ask a kind of tough question only to never follow it up, just abandon the thread. So there was no actual pushback when Kamala Harris or Tim Walz lied. Before we go any further, I want to remind you that we do have a special deal going on over at Daily Wire. We have a Labor Day deal. You get 40% off right now at our Labor Day sale. All you have to do is head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use promo code LABOR40 at checkout to get that special deal. Again, we're bringing you updates all throughout the election cycle. We can only do that because of your membership, so we really appreciate it. Okay, now back to the interview. There were a bunch of F-ups here by Kamala Harris that are going to be used in campaign ads. And that really is the measure of the interview, because as an interview, it was really boring. Not a lot happened, actually, during the interview. She word saladed a lot. She filibustered a lot. There was a lot of just mush mouth coming out of Kamala Harris. She looked kind of awkward. Her mannerisms, she looked like she was not comfortable being there. Tim Walz looked uncomfortable being there. She was clearly very nervous. She doesn't want to be in front of a camera answering actual questions. The very first question was, what are you going to do day one? And she didn't have an answer for that. She filibustered that answer. That's like the number one question every presidential candidate gets. How did she not have an answer for that? But that's not what's going to damage her. There are a couple of answers here that actually are going to damage her. The first answer that is going to be a real problem for her is she was asked about her constantly changing and vacillating positions. And they're all over the place. They're constantly changing, constantly vacillating. So she was specifically asked about fracking. And she said, well, I was against fracking, but then I changed my position in 2020. Now, remember, her campaign actually ended in 2019. It didn't make it to 2020. She changed her position because it wasn't Joe Biden's position when she was running for vice president. So she says, in 2019, I was against fracking. Then in 2020, I was pro-fracking. And believe you me, right now, I am definitely pro-fracking. And you can believe me because I'm saying so, because I changed then, but I won't change again. Bad answer, especially because she was asked by Dana Bash, why do you change your positions? Like, do you have any explanation for why these positions changed? And not only that, Dana Bash went further. Dana Bash, being a very kind and generous interviewer, which is to say, being in the pocket of the Harris-Walz campaign, she actually offered her multiple choice options. So she actually said to her, did you change your positions because you maybe evolved or maybe because you learned new information? And Kamala Harris then completely avoided either of those answers, both of which are totally plausible on our multiple choice exam to be president of the United States. And instead, she went with, I haven't changed any of my values. That line is going to be at the center of a lot of attack ads from the Trump campaign because she hasn't changed her values. She has not. The Green New Deal is a radical piece of legislation. The Inflation Reduction Act is a radical piece of legislation. She was for open borders. She tried to bring herself off as a border hawk. And when she was asked about the open borders policy of the Biden administration for the first 3.5 years, she started talking about Donald Trump and how she was a prosecutor at one point. That dog is not going to hunt if somebody actually asks her an aggressive line of questioning. The question will be whether she does an interview ever again after this one. The other answer that I think is really going to harm her is her answer on Joe Biden. So Dana Bash said, you were a big defender of Joe Biden. You said he was healthy. You said everything was fine, hunky-dory, better than great. He was awesome. Do you have any regrets about that? And she doubled down. She said, no regrets about that. He's intelligent. He's smart. He's with it. He's the kind of person you want to be president. Now, this is where Dana Bash's sycophancy is a sin. This is where her being a kiss ass is a real sin. She should have said back to Kamala Harris, okay, you say that he's smart and he's healthy and he's with it. So why did he drop out? Do you want him to get back in? Do you think that he should get back in? Like, why shouldn't he? Did you win any primary votes? That's where she should have pressed. And presumably Donald Trump will have to press her on that if given the opportunity during the debate on September 10th. But Dana Bash, really let her off the hook on that one. Again, her lying to the American people for years about the health status of Joe Biden is really a major issue that has not been tapped yet. Because most Americans think that she was lying and that everyone was lying. But we didn't get a lot of talk about that. We got a lot of talk about how she was serving out bacon to her little nieces or something when she got the news from Joe Biden. So that answer is not going to be particularly helpful to her. The rest of it was basically just a mashup of platitudes and nonsense and her talking about the significance of time. She actually did that again. One of her favorite crutches is when we talk about the significance of, that is her stalling for time. It's her crutch. She doesn't have anything to say, so she starts talking about the significance of the thing that she knows nothing about. So she's asked about climate change, and she'll start talking about the significance of climate change. Well, that wasn't the question. The question is, what's your policy? Or she's asked, first of all, I don't understand how there are no questions about her tax policy. She's literally proposing a 25% tax on unrealized capital gains, which is insane. How is there no question? I mean, Dana Bash betrayed her profession tonight. She really did. Horrifyingly bad job. Now, Tim Walz, again, he was just kind of there as backup, I guess. It was super weird. He sat there silently for nearly the entire interview. He was brought in near the end to talk about how proud he was of his son. That's fine. He was asked some questions about the fact that he has lied about his DUI back in 1995, about his military service, about his wife's IVF, that he's lied about all of these things. And he said something about how, well, you mess up when you talk a lot. He should have just said, listen, if I make mistakes, I try to correct them, which is not true, by the way. He certainly does not. He said something about how he screwed up the grammar, but people will give him... Is any of this going to really ding Tim Walz in a serious way? I seriously doubt it. Also, the VP candidate just doesn't matter all that much. Suffice it to say his answers were not brilliant. I don't think they did him any sort of serious damage. But it was weird to have him there. Like, he shouldn't have been there at all. And it made Kamala Harris look a little bit minor league. And why is she doing that? Now, one point I will hand to Kamala Harris. Her campaign is smart enough to recognize that she should not steer into the racial identitarianism. She was asked twice racially identitarian questions by Dana Bash. She was asked about Donald Trump and his talk about whether she was truly black or not, and she completely ignored that question. She just said, he does that all the time. Next question. That is a smart answer. It is. It's an actual smart answer by Kamala Harris. Then later on, she was asked about this ridiculous photograph that for some reason Democrats love. I mean, I get why, because she looks like an authoritarian dictator in it. I mean, she's like up against a white backdrop or against a lit backdrop, and there's a little girl who's profiled from behind, gazing glowingly up and worshipfully up at Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is asked about first woman, first black woman, all this kind of stuff. And she gives I'm just here to be the good president. That's a good answer. That is a good answer. But those were the sole bright spots. The rest of it was just argle-bargle. It was just nonsense. The thing is that our standards have been set so unbelievably low in presidential politics that if she didn't physically crap herself in the middle of the interview, it was a massive improvement over Joe Biden. And, her kind of wandering all over the landscape in search of an idea, not a great shock. Of course, we've been here before. So, like on a scale of 1 to 10, was this like a true car crash? Again, in any normal circumstance, it's a car crash. Is this a true car crash for Kamala? Like, is it going to do serious damage to her campaign? No. Is it going to grow her audience? Is it going to make people feel super comfortable with her? Also no. So did it move the ball forward for her? Well, I mean, I suppose that it quieted the criticism that she doesn't take questions or something for like a moment. But that's not going to go away. If this is the only interview that she does from now until the debate, everyone is going to go right back to, you booked a softball interview in which you were interviewed for like 7 seconds by Dana Bash. And then you went back hiding on the campaign trail. So is it going to quiet those critiques? I think not. Do I think this actually changed much? I don't. Do I think it exposes why they will not let her in front of cameras for love or money if they can help it without a teleprompter? Absolutely. Kamala Harris is truly bad at this. Reminder, we bring you these updates all throughout the campaign. Once again, you're going to want to go over to dailywire.com/subscribe, become a member, help us, help you. Use code LABOR40 and get 40% off for your Labor Day sale this weekend. Go check it out right now, dailywire.com/subscribe. We'll be back here tomorrow with the entire recap of everything in detail, plus all of the controversy surrounding Donald Trump and abortion. He opened a bit of a can of worms today. We'll get into that tomorrow. We'll see you then. Hey, folks. Well, it's very difficult to begin the new year with such terrible news out of New Orleans. I wanted to bring you the latest breaking news from the authorities at this point. So what we do know is that by various reports, somewhere between 10 and 15 people have died in New Orleans at this point. Another 35 have been wounded by a terror attack. The terrorist's name is apparently Shamsud Din Jabbar. Now, normally I don't mention the names of mass killers. The difference is that the authorities are actually seeking more information about this person. And so if you have information about this person, it's actually relevant to know his name. He's a 42-year-old U.S. citizen from Texas. Apparently, according to the FBI, he was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to have been rented. There was some early reporting that it had crossed over the U.S. southern border via the Eagle Pass crossing. That does not mean the person inside was an illegal immigrant or anything like that. Apparently, this car was rented. It last crossed through that Eagle Pass crossing back in November. So it's quite possible the person who owned the vehicle went to Mexico and back into the country. In any case, what we do know is that at 3:15 a.m. Central Time, an individual drove a pickup truck into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. After hitting the crowd, the suspect then exited the vehicle and fired on local law enforcement. Law enforcement returned fire and killed the suspect on scene. There was, in fact, an ISIS flag in the vehicle. The FBI did ask for citizen help in determining if there were any other associates. They are investigating other known associates. They're operating under the assumption this person did not act alone and that this may, in fact, have been part of a terror cell. Presumably, one of the reasons for that is that there were IEDs that were found in the vehicle. There were also IEDs that were found, apparently, on the street. And those were apparently detonated a little bit earlier today. There are questions that have been raised about why exactly Bourbon Street wasn't better protected, why there weren't steel bollards that were up, why there weren't barriers that would have prevented some sort of terrible automobile attack like this one. Obviously, this is not the first time that you've seen an Islamic terror attack of this nature. Almost every year, there's a Christmas market in Europe that is attacked by some member associated with ISIS. So what the hell happened here? Well, apparently, according to New Orleans City Council member Jean-Pierre Morel, he said on Wednesday the barriers on Bourbon Street were in the process of being repaired. The suspect actually drove over the sidewalk to avoid that particular area. He said even had the bollard barriers been up, the circumvention by riding on the sidewalk would have defeated them. Apparently, according to that city council member, the suspect was staying in an Airbnb before the attack. Again, a horrible, horrible attack. Details are still emerging. The officers who were involved in killing the suspect, 2 of them received gunfire. According to the chief of police, they will be okay. What we do know about the suspect at this point, Jabbar was an Army veteran, possibly had been discharged. Unclear exactly at this point whether that would be an honorable or dishonorable discharge. There is some tape apparently floating around of the suspect doing things like diversity training on behalf of the military. He apparently, again, was born in Texas and that he was raised in Texas as well. We don't know if he went abroad and was recruited abroad or if he was trained abroad or anything like that at this time. Again, what we do know, according directly to the FBI, is that he was driving a Ford pickup truck, which was rented. They're working to confirm how the suspect came into possession of the vehicle. And again, there was an ISIS flag that was located in the vehicle. The FBI says they're working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. Now, very early on, the mayor of New Orleans immediately called this a terror attack, and the FBI immediately tried to walk that back and said, well, we don't know if it's a terror attack or not. We're not going to care. And then they came back and said, we're investigating it as a terror attack. They're going to sort of pretend away the fact that they denied it was a terror attack at the outset. But this is pretty clearly an Islamist terror attack. So presumably the FBI is going to spend the next hours and days trying to retrace exactly what happened to this person, who this person was associated with, and if there are other suspects who are out there right now. Meanwhile, there are other explosions that are happening. Unclear whether these are related, whether it's an accident or anything else like that. It would be very weird if it were an accident, what just happened outside of the Trump Vegas hotel. Apparently, a Cybertruck blew up in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. It's a fairly large explosion. Yeah, it's no reports of any casualties. It did rock the area. We have no other information on this at the time. Maybe somebody put fireworks in the Cybertruck. Maybe this was a message about Elon Musk and Donald Trump. We don't know anything like that at this moment. President Trump has issued a statement. He issued a statement very quickly on this, did President Trump. President Trump's statement lamented the amount of crime under Joe Biden. Said, quote, when I said that criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Our hearts with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil. J.D. Vance also put out a statement in solidarity with the people of New Orleans at this time. He said, heartbreaking violence last night in New Orleans, such a beautiful and great American city. May God bless the victims and their families. Okay, so what exactly is going on here? Well, this person was an ISIS affiliate. We know that ISIS tends to recruit over the internet. We know that ISIS has agents all over the world. Very often, these are people who are born domestically inside the West and then are recruited because they are radical Muslims into ISIS. We also know that ISIS has been flexing its muscle somewhat in Syria. The decline of the Assad regime in Syria, the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, and its replacement with HTS, which is an Islamic Jihad breakoff group. It's a breakoff group from originally Al-Qaeda and then also from ISIS. You know, that breakoff group says they now oppose Al-Qaeda and they oppose ISIS, but we know that ISIS also has been attempting jailbreaks in the Kurdish areas of Syria. Could this have something to do with the situation in Syria, the chaos in Syria? Totally unclear at this point. Again, it could be another one of these ISIS quote-unquote lone wolves. Again, it appears this person was a domestic American citizen, a person born in the United States and who's recruited into ISIS. Islamic terrorism remains a serious threat to the American public. Pretending that away by suggesting that the real threat in America is right-wing, quote-unquote, white supremacism, that the real threat of terrorism in the United States has nothing to do with radical Islam is, of course, wish casting. And this is one of the big problems that Europe has had as well, is the attempt to pretend away the problem of radical Islamism and its impact on the politics and the lives of people who are living in Europe. A huge amount of the immigration backlash that is happening in the West is a direct result of the flooding of the West with people from countries that unfortunately harbor beliefs that are very much in line with those of ISIS, that are Muslim Brotherhood offshoots, that are radical Islamist cells or associated therewith. So again, information is still coming out at this point. We will bring you more information as it does. And there are going to be serious conversations, and there should be, about the nature of our immigration system, about who should get in, about who should not be allowed in. That is not just going to be a question with regard to illegal immigration. It's going to be a question with regard to legal immigration. Where are people coming from? What are their belief systems? How well do they want to assimilate into the United States? How much do they actually care about American values? How much do they hate those values? How vulnerable are they to recruitment by radical Islamist terror groups like ISIS? These are all open questions at this point. One thing is for sure. Things are about to change in the United States in a very significant way with regard to how Americans view all of these issues, because President Trump is coming into power. That is going to change how these issues are addressed. Border issues, immigration issues, anti-terrorism issues. No more excuses for radical Islamic terror under President Trump. That was one of his strongest points during Trump term number 1. I would assume the same is true during Trump term number 2. He's put together an excellent foreign policy team that is directed against Islamic terrorism, that is directed against defeating Islamic terrorism, and that is directed against allowing immigrants from places that are warm toward Islamic terrorism into the United States. And we'll continue to bring you all of the news on this. Should mention that in order for us to continue to bring you things like Ben Reacts, we would appreciate you subscribing over at dailywire.com/subscribe. Go check us out right now. It's a brand new year. It's a good time to subscribe and join the fight. dailywire.com/subscribe. Every piece of breaking news, every show, every reaction, it's all possible because of support from our members. Join us now as we fight the left and build the future. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code FIGHT for 47% off. Fox News just called it. It's over, gang. Yep. It's over. Fox News calls Pennsylvania. This election is done. It's toast. You can put it in the fridge. It's finished. Donald Trump is your 47th president of the United States, the greatest political comeback in American history. Bar none. Yeah. No doubts about it. Un-effing believable. Unbelievable. And to you, the American people, put the work in.
The
amount of work that people put into this election cycle, particularly me, but others,
it doesn't work. You got that.
it's incredible. Really, like I mean, the amount of work. I mean, the number of people that we all personally know who are like door knocking and going out and doing the hard work and making the connections, putting aside whatever differences are out there. I mean, this is a huge victory against a woke left that needed to take it directly in the teeth.
This is
just huge, just enormous.
This is the greatest comeback, without dispute, in the history of American politics.
TDHQ has called the election. Donald Trump is your 47th president of the United States.
Yes! There it is.
Yes! Damn.
All right.
So, well, the world is about to change in a much better way, much better way, from foreign policy to domestic policy to the social fabric of the country. And now it's time for those that Donald John Trump has defeated to actually take seriously the possibility they got it all wrong. They got it all wrong. And it's time to rethink some things about the American people and about the country they seem to say that they ought to represent.
It is also time for me to have a drink. I think
you've heard it. And Dennis Prager left early.
No!
Oh, boy.
Now we have to have his drink. I mean, if we must.
You know, the nice thing about the color orange is that it encompasses so many colors. It's not just white. It's not just black.
It's really
not
a blending
just brown. It's a blended family. It's like America.
Rainbow coming together.
That's like Obama said. We're not red America. We're not white. We're not
orange America. Today we're all orange. That's right. It's been a long road.
United States of America.
To the United States of America.
And number 47.
And number 47.
Donald Trump. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Folks, do you owe back taxes? Don't gamble with the IRS to no win. Tax Network USA is on your side. Their attorneys and expert negotiators use aggressive strategies to settle your IRS issues fast and in your favor. They've saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. For a free and private consultation with a tax professional that knows how to win, call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/react. Contact Tax Network USA today. Put your tax worries behind you. Again, if you got a tax problem, go get it solved today. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit our friends at Tax Network USA at tnusa.com/react. We were 1 centimeter away from things completely exploding, not just Trump's head.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, that is how close this country just came. The person that a bullet missed his head by this much is now the next president of the United States again. Okay, I'm sorry. If you don't believe in God, it's time to start thinking about it really a lot, like real strong. You might want to take like a real strong think on that one. You know, last time in 2016, I had to pay Michael because I bet wrong on the election. This time I called it. I called it this time, so I don't have to pay you any more money.
Remember that bet we had on New Hampshire? you were a little tired.
Yeah, he was. I remember.
It was about $400.
I was more right than wrong. That's all I'll say. Wow. Okay, guys, we need clips from MSNBC. Feed it into my veins. I need it from MSNBC right now. CNN, MSNBC, all the networks into my veins.
Thank you, sir.
Slow drip for the rest of my life.
By the way, can we also say it's not going to, electorally speaking, the popular vote, I don't know because California is a big state.
Yes.
But Donald Trump is going to win 300 electoral votes.
He's going to win the popular. I'm just telling you right now, he's going to win the popular vote.
He's going to win the vote.
He's going to win the popular vote. He's going to win the popular vote because she is. They're not showing up for her, and they're showing up for him. And he's going to win the popular. You know how crazy this ride has been? This is a crazy ride. I mean, just like to recap, for those who may have been asleep the last 10 years, like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was elected in what was probably the greatest electoral fluke of our lifetime in 2016 by 77,000 votes in 3 separate states after losing the popular vote by like 6 million votes. Yeah. And then we had a pandemic in his election year with massive riots.
Right.
And he lost to Joe Biden by 7 million popular votes, and he lost by a handful of votes in a bunch of separate states. Wow. He then proceeded to be prosecuted 4 times after having been impeached twice, nearly assassinated twice in the last year, had the candidate he was beating swapped out for another candidate. The entire media then sided behind that candidate, and then he won anyway. Okay, I'm just gonna put it out there again. Folks, if you ain't going to synagogue or church, you really ought to re-examine your perception of the way that God moves through history, because my goodness gracious. Alrighty, folks, so TikTok is filled with pro-Hamas people standing for the terrorist group. We're going to go through some of their videos And we will see what shining, bright moral lights they have, how much nuance they can provide. This video is sponsored by our friends at Genucel.
Whenever you start losing hope, just remember that this hashtag, the ones that say stand with Israel, got millions of views. But the Palestine ones got multi-millions of views, baby, almost triple. Don't ever let the media fool you. The people stand with Palestine. This is with all of the money that Israel spends on propaganda. It doesn't matter. The people are still hashtagging Palestine way more and viewing it way more than Israel. So don't ever forget that.
You know why that is? Because there are 15 million Jews on the planet, and there are a billion Muslims on the planet. That would be the reason. I love the conspiratorial. Oh my, the Jews with their money and those moneyed Jews. But we are still winning because the people love us. Or maybe there are a billion Muslims, and a huge number of them hate Israel and are anti-Semitic.
Be very careful of what you say about Israel. Any believer going against Israel, you are making yourself an enemy against God.
I don't know how this Zionist propaganda made it to the black community, but it is incorrect. First of all, Palestinians and Israelis worship the same God. It's the God from the Abrahamic religions. Second of all, Palestine is not going against God by not wanting to give up their land to Israel, land that they've lived on for hundreds of thousands of years.
Whoa, hundreds of thousands? That's an amazing piece of news. Hundreds of thousands of years Palestinians have been living there? That's kind of strange. Hundreds of thousands of years. Well, this person's a historical genius. As far as the Palestinians and the Israelis are worshiping the same God, it is true that Allah and God are the same God. It is not true that the Palestinians are worshiping the same God as the Israelis, not in this conflict, where Hamas is worshiping a death cult.
If the U.S. and the European nations are so for Israel, they should give them land from Europe or land from the United States to live on.
The Jews are indigenous. The Jews are the indigenous people of the land of Israel. It's why Judea is called Judea. God, the historic ignorance here, suggesting the Jews are somehow the colonial outpost in the Middle East, when Jews predated the existence of Islam by some 2 millennia or so. It's so crazy. These people don't know anything. They're so ignorant, and they are so unbelievably stupid. By the way, the argument that she's making about repatriating Jews to, say, Europe, where last time Jews were repatriated there, it ended really poorly. You know what I noticed? If you look at a map of the Middle East, Israel is like this big. And if you look at all the Muslim countries surrounding it, they're like this big. And yet none of them are taking in any of the Palestinian refugees. Weird. Weird how that works. Strange. Doesn't matter that 800,000 Jews were expelled from Arab and Muslim lands in 1948 to 1957. That doesn't matter. And that Israel took all of them in, and 0 Palestinians have been absorbed by anyone in the surrounding area, specifically to use as a tool against the Jews. Now, really, the United States should set aside a part of Montana for the Jews in the historic Jewish homeland of Montana. God, these people are just, what? I can't even critique the stupidity. Every moment I spend with these people makes me dumber. It's unreal.
They should let them make a country there, not on Palestine.
Palestine is a fiction. Palestine is a fiction. It was made up by the Romans after the expulsion of Jews in 136 CE after the Bar Kokhba revolt. And it was made up with the name Palestine specifically to mock the Jews, because it was supposed to be a representation of the Philistines.
The Bible does not say anything about Israel, because Israel was created in 1948 when the British and the United Nations decided to fight a war with Palestine.
What the f*** is she talking about? What in the world is she talking about? Fight a war with Palestine? In what sense? This is such pseudo-history. These people are morons. They're morons. The British mandate was in place until 1947. The Balfour Declaration declared a Jewish state on both sides of the Jordan. That would be Israel and what is today Jordan. And then, over subsequent years, the British then whittled that down. They cut off all of Jordan and handed it to the Arabs. They then cut off most of the land of Israel and handed it to the Arabs. Israel and the Jews accepted every one of those deals, every one of them, including a rump state that was indefensible, what was called by many Jews the Auschwitz borders after World War II, because it was so indefensible. The Jews accepted every one of those deals. The Arabs rejected every one of those deals. What the hell is she? And then she's suggesting that the United States and the Brits fought a war against the Arabs here? The British, during the 1930s, restricted Jewish immigration into British Mandate Palestine at the behest of the Arabs, leaving millions of Jews to die in Europe. It was so bad that the Jews in Israel had to smuggle Jews in boats, trying to evade the British in order to get Jews away from the Holocaust that was happening in Europe. The Jews were forbidden from actually importing either guns or ammunition into British Mandate Palestine, necessitating the creation of underground bullet factories in the state of Israel in order so they could even defend themselves. When the British Mandate ended, the British summarily turned over many of the key strategic locations and weapons to the Arabs. Again, these people don't know history. They don't even pretend to know history. They Google something on Wikipedia and then promptly failed to even interpret it properly.
And cut that country in half to create an ethno-state for Ashkenazi Jewish people. And ever since that war, Israel has taken more and more and more of Palestine's territory.
Okay, Israel accepted the partition plan by the UN in 1947-48. The Arabs rejected it, launched a war. Israel won the war and got a little bit more territory. In 1967, the Arab nations launched an all-out war to destroy Israel, and in 6 days, Israel took the entirety of what is now modern-day Israel, including Judea, Samaria, and the Gaza Strip. In 1973, another all-out war by the Arabs. In 1979, Israel gave back the entire Sinai Desert to Egypt. In 1995, under the Oslo Accords, Israel surrendered the Gaza Strip as well as large swaths of Judea and Samaria to terrorist groups in order to attempt to buy a peace. These people don't know anything about history. They don't even pretend to know anything about history. It's absurd. We'll get to more on this in just 1 second. First, our friends over at Genucel have launched a new product. It's called Genucel 3. It works fast on your under-eye bags and puffiness. Genucel 3 is smoother, more luxurious. It uses advanced technology to deliver complex vitamins and minerals directly to your face for instant hydration. It's like Gatorade for your skin. Not only has Genucel been a longtime partner of this show, my family's been using their products for over a decade. They first advertised on a local show I did in Los Angeles like a decade ago. The product was so good we continued to use it even when I wasn't even doing that show anymore. They have crazy fast results that correct skin blemishes right before your eyes. This new Genucel technology keeps your skin looking young and healthy for years to come. The Genucel Fall Classics package also includes a jawline treatment for a more firm neck and jawline. It also includes Genucel's anti-wrinkle moisturizer and deep firming serum. Go to genucel.com/Ben for extra discounts on this amazing fall package. Get your skin ready for the cold and dry weather. If you don't look and feel your absolute best, you'll get your money back. No questions asked. That's genucel.com/Ben. Again, check them out at genucel.com/Ben. That's genucel.com/Ben for a special deal on their fall package. genucel.com/Ben.
We will never feel ashamed of our support of the Palestinian people. We will never be harassed into silence.
Black student organizers at Harvard are being attacked by Zionist and right-wing forces for their support of Palestine. Their faces are being shown on trucks around campus, accusing them of being anti-Semites.
Well, okay, actually, can we fill that in right there? The reason that those trucks are on campus is because a bunch of student groups signed a statement blaming Israel for the massacre of Jews and backing Hamas. That would be the reason. That would be the actual reason.
But despite these efforts to derail their organizing, they say they will not be deterred.
We resolutely stand in solidarity with the Palestinian resistance against the apartheid state that is Israel. It is genocide of the Palestinian people right now. Shamefully, it is primarily black and Arab students that are facing the brunt of these racist attacks.
Oh, I mean, I feel terrible for you. I feel so terrible for you. You're leading a terrible life. I mean, you're the subject of such racist attacks. I mean, not like the babies who were burned to death in the Gaza envelope, but really, it's been very rough for you when people actually show your face on a billboard and say that you hate Jews when you're clearly standing for a terrorist group. I feel so terrible for you. Ugh, the horror. Ugh, the victimization.
But none of that changes our solidarity with Palestine. We believe in a free Palestine from the river to the sea.
Ah, there it is. From the river to the sea. The river to the sea, by the way, is extermination of Israel. It's the Jordan River, the Mediterranean Sea. That means no Jews. All dead. That's what that means.
The leaders of past resistance movements never cowered and never shied away. We are here today to do the exact same.
Okay, well, that's fine. You just don't have to work for any big law firm. That's okay. It seems to me that if you are a big business, if you are a legal firm, you have no obligation to hire people who support baby murderers.
Actually, Hamas started this whole thing. Remember October 7th? Actually, that's wrong. Before October 7th, Israeli security forces killed 248 Palestinians, and 40 of them were children, and that was just this year. And if you want to go back further than that, we can look at the recent history of war crimes committed by the Israeli government. Operation Protective Edge in 2014, Operation Pillar of Defense in 2012, Operation Cast Lead in 2009.
What started each one of those operations? Islamic barrages of rockets into civilian centers in Israel. That's what started each one of these operations. I love this moron. I guess the idea here is that if you point out that what has caused the current conflict is the massacre of 1,500 Jews, like, well, before that, Israel killed other Palestinians. And you're like, yeah, but why would they do that? And the answer is because they were associated with terrorist groups. And he's like, yeah, but what about the conflict before? Oh, you mean because the terrorists were firing rockets into Israel? It's an infinite regress of dumb here. Just name a bunch of operations without actually explaining why the operations were initiated.
Yeah, but you don't mention why Cast-Lead happened. Hamas fired rockets into Israel. And that was because Israel broke the ceasefire agreement they had on November 4th, 2008, while the entire world was in euphoria over the United States electing its first black president, Barack Obama. Israel used the opportunity to break the ceasefire agreement and raid Gaza and kill Palestinians.
For no reason, they're just raiding Gaza, just for fun. They just raid Gaza. To do what exactly? To steal their nothing? What would the raid entail? What would be the purpose of such a raid? Can you explain? Like, what are the great valuable jewels being held in Gaza that the Israelis desperately need to get their hands on? Israel so desperately wanted not to be in Gaza that they surrendered the place to a fucking terrorist group for 20 years, who then spent every last dime building rockets and terror tunnels so as to murder 1,500 Jews. You know, and one thing that I've noticed, they keep saying they're running out of power, they're running out of fuel, they're running out of water. You know the thing they haven't been running out of? Rockets.
Well, you're leaving out a lot of context. You got to go back further than that. To 1967? Yeah, let's go back to 1967, when Israel started a preemptive war.
Egypt was mobilizing its air force.
Syria and Jordan, and took more land from Palestine, further enclosing Palestinians into the Gaza Strip. They illegally occupied the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in what has been formally condemned ever since 1967 as an illegal occupation in violation of international law, unilaterally condemned by the World Court.
Who gives a shit about the World Court? You mean organizations staffed by people who hate Israel, and the UN and the Red Cross? Like,
the UN, the Red Cross,
oh my God,
the Geneva Conventions,
the Geneva Conventions.
Consensus.
He's doing this in defense of Hamas, the Geneva Conventions.
In the world all call on Israel to return to its pre-June 1967 borders.
That's not even true. That's not even true. Even the UN resolutions, which are garbage and stupid, even those UN resolutions call on Israel to surrender some of the occupied territories. Not all occupied territory. Those are disputed territories. Some occupied territories.
Yeah, but you're missing more context. You got to go back to 1948. Okay, let's
go
back to
67 was fine.
In 1948, Zionists extirpated about 1 million Palestinians from their homes and forced them to relocate to the Gaza Strip.
What? Excuse me, in 1947-48, there was a full-scale war between Arabs and Israelis. Somewhere between 700 and 800,000 Palestinians either fled or were expelled from areas where there was military activity. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians left in the lead-up to the war and during the war because all social services had collapsed because the Arab nations were telling them to get out. The other part is that you may have noticed many Arabs remained, which is why 20% of Israel's population currently is Israeli Arab. The Gaza Strip was then governed by Egypt. I don't see this guy calling for Egypt to form a Palestinian state in the Gaza Strip. The West Bank was completely occupied by Jordan from 48 to 67. No call for a Palestinian state. Weird. Weird. Again, the Jews took in 800,000 expelled Jews from all the Muslim countries in the region during the same period, took in all of them. I don't see this guy calling for return of the Jews to their historic homelands of Morocco, their historic homeland of Egypt and Iraq.
Today, about 70% of all Gazans are considered refugees from the 1948 expulsion.
Okay, pause that for a second. How is that even possible? Seriously, how's that even possible? Well, folks, unfortunately, there's a lot of crap out there that is just like this, and so we had to do a part 2. That's coming shortly. Hey, folks, so we're here to talk about what just happened. Bashar al-Assad, the Assad regime in Syria, is gone. And chaos is about to break loose. We're going to talk about the upsides and the downsides in this Ben Reacts. First, your reminder that this is the final day of our 50% off sale over at Daily Wire. Daily Wire Plus 50% off, but it ends today. It's our best deal of the year. When it's gone, it is gone for good. With Daily Wire Plus, you stay on top of breaking news. You get the truth behind the headlines, the facts others refuse to cover. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe right now. Do not wait. This deal ends today. Alrighty, so here's your actual update. On the ground right now, Bashar Assad is out. He apparently is already in Russia. Bashar Assad has been the ruler with an iron fist of Syria for the last 24 years. He, of course, follows in the footsteps of his father, Hafez al-Assad, and the Assad family has been in charge of Syria for the last 50 years or so. Now, Syria was always a sort of bizarre creation of the Sykes-Picot arrangement that emerged from the West, from France and Britain particularly, after World War I. And it's always been a bit of a mess. It has been particularly a mess given the number of different ethnic and religious groups inside Syria. So Syria has within it a large area that is controlled by the Kurds. It has a large area that is controlled by Shia. It has a large area that is controlled by Sunni. It has Druze. It has Christians. It has all sorts of people who are living in this gigantic area. Geographically, Syria is located to the west of Iraq. It is located to the east of Lebanon and to the northeast of Israel. and Turkey is to its north. Okay, so if you can sort of imagine all of that, that means that pretty much all of those forces are having some impact inside Syria. Now, Syria's civil war has been ongoing since 2011, and it has essentially pitted the Assad regime, which is backed by Iran and Russia, on the one hand, against Sunni Islamic militants, terrorists, many associated with ISIS or Al-Qaeda, and then some other sort of hodgepodge rebel groups who are Sunni in origin, some Kurds as well, who are involved in this rebellion against the Assad regime. And those were backed predominantly by Turkey, not the Kurds. The Kurds, as we'll see, are actually the rivals of Turkey, and Turkey has been using the chaos in Syria in order to launch its own incursions into the border regions of Syria in order to ethnically cleanse and move away the Kurds. Okay, so as we say, this entire state is a basket case. It's been a basket case for a long time. But because Bashar Assad's regime was held up chiefly by Iran and by Russia, because it was used as a thoroughfare by Iran to smuggle arms into Lebanon to Hezbollah, what that meant is that as Iran weakened and as Russia weakened, so too did the Assad regime. That's the real story of what's happening today and what's happened over the past few weeks. What changed, right? Because this civil war has been raging at a fairly high level for the last decade and a half, over 300,000 people dead, over 12 million refugees. You remember, of course, the very famous pictures of toddlers watching up on the beaches of the Mediterranean who are trying to escape from Syria to get to Europe, for example. So what exactly happened that changed everything? The answer is that Israel completely shellacked Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the Iranian-controlled proxy group in Lebanon. As we mentioned, think of the geography. Lebanon is to the north of Israel, and it is to the west of Syria. And so Iran, via Iraq, had this entire Shia crescent that it was controlling territorially that extended from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, into Lebanon. And then the kind of tip of the crescent went all the way down into the Gaza Strip. And of course, there are other Iran-connected forces in places like Yemen with the Houthis. Okay, but the predominant territorially integrous, the sort of unified area that was controlled by Shia, went from Iran all the way to the Mediterranean into Lebanon. So when Israel decided it was going to take out Hezbollah because Hezbollah had fired some 8,000 to 10,000 rockets at Israel in solidarity with Hamas over the course of the last year, when Israel completely destroyed Hezbollah, and that's really what happened here. Israel destroyed Hezbollah's capacity to make war. They destroyed their long-range weaponry. They destroyed their short-range weaponry. They destroyed their capacity to even ship things into the south of Lebanon. They didn't just do that. They were also interdicting all sorts of material that was being sent from Iran through Syria and into Lebanon. That meant that Israel's Air Force was actually doing some pretty heavy lifting inside Syria as well, bombing particular targets in order to stop the Iranians from shipping material via Syria into Lebanon. Well, when Hezbollah got completely destroyed by Israel, Hezbollah was a major force that was upholding the Assad regime. And when Hezbollah disappeared, there went one leg that was the support for the Assad regime. Then there was another leg, and that was the Russians. So you'll recall back during the Obama administration, there was a lot of talk on what was going to happen with regard to the Syrian situation. You remember that Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons on his own people, and Barack Obama, in all of his great wisdom, suggested that we had a red line, the West had a red line with regard to the use of such chemical weapons. And then it turns out that the violation of the red line didn't actually mean anything to Barack Obama. And so he basically handed over control to the Russians. The Russians came in, they said, don't worry, we'll take care of the chemical weapons problems. We'll take care of everything. And so that became a preserve of the Russians. So much so that when Israel was flying sorties over Syria in order to prevent material from reaching Lebanon and Hezbollah in Lebanon, they actually had to get Russian permission so they didn't come into direct conflict with the Russians. Okay, so there's a problem. The Russians have been a little busy lately. You may have noticed that they are bogged down in an interminable war in Ukraine, in which they themselves have lost hundreds of thousands of troops. And so what does that mean? It means the other support leg for the Assad regime was basically gone. And that meant that the Assad regime itself was basically gone. And that's why you've seen this lightning offensive from these Sunni terrorist groups. I mean, that is essentially what they are. Anybody who's trying to soft pedal exactly the people who are now in charge of Syria, I think is whistling past the graveyard, to say the very least. The leader of the Sunni Islamist rebels is a guy named Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani. How much of a terrorist is this guy? The U.S. State Department has a $10 million reward on his head. He is, according to Jerome Dravan, a senior analyst of jihad and modern conflict at the International Crisis Group, the most important player on the ground in Syria. Originally, he was a member of both Al-Qaeda and at one point ISIS. He was kind of bouncing between the two of them. And then he launched his own terror group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And he took over some areas of Syria. And he attempted to play himself off as less of a terrorist, more of a moderate. He was apparently only going to focus in on situationally improving the lives of the people in his area. This, by the way, did involve significant human rights abuses against, for example, Christians. Again, there are no good guys here. Okay, Bashar al-Assad, really bad guy. Jelani, really bad guy. All these other terrorist groups, really bad. There are some people on the ground who presumably aren't as bad. That'd be, you would imagine, the Druze, the Kurds, but those are not the main forces that we're talking about right now. So according to the New York Times, al-Jelani is now attempting to position himself as a sort of moderate. He was running a place called Idlib, which is in sort of the northwest of Syria, and then he kind of swept down across the rest of Syria and took over Damascus yesterday and today. In Idlib, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has espoused a government guided by conservative and at times hardline Sunni Islamist ideology. So basically similar to the Taliban, sort of. Since the rebel offensive began, however, al-Jelani has sought to reassure minority communities from other sects and religions. These are the kinds of words that were being said, as you recall, by the Taliban before the United States pulled out of Afghanistan in the first place. So, is this going to be a perfect situation? Of course not. There are no perfect situations here. There are no perfect situations. What does it mean? I'll tell you what it means in 1 second for kind of all the players involved, because there's, as always in the Middle East, some upsides with Assad being gone and some significant downsides with Assad being gone. There are not a lot of wonderful players in the Middle East. I'll get to that in a moment. First, no one wants to think about debt. The cold, hard truth of it is many of us will get deeper in debt during the holidays. My friends at PDS Debt can help with a personalized solution just for you. If you're making payments every month on your debt, your balances aren't going down, PDS does have solutions for you. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies. No minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Start planning today. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/react. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/react. pdsdebt.com/react. Okay, so that is the situation on the ground right now. So what does that mean? Okay, well, what it means for Christians is a much more fraught existence. It was already pretty fraught in Syria. All this pretend that Bashar al-Assad was wonderful to Christians, that is not true. Okay, there were significant human rights predations against Christians on the ground, not only in the areas controlled by Sunni terrorists, but also in the areas that were controlled by Shia terrorists. Syria is about 10% Christian. Okay, so is it about to get worse? It definitely could, which would, of course, be a terrible thing. And then you have the question of what Bashar al-Assad was doing to the country, which is killing hundreds of thousands of people using everything up to and including chemical weapons. Well, he's gone now, and Israel has been striking a lot of the chemical weapons depots to prevent them from falling into the hands of the new rebel alliance over here. Okay, so, again, is any of this wonderful? It isn't. But the one thing that is an upside is that the Iranian crescent is dead. Okay, the Shia crescent that, again, stretched all the way from Iran all the way across to Lebanon, that is now dead. What does that mean? It means the Iranian regime is actually in quite real trouble here. All of their biggest proxies are gone. Hamas, gone. Hezbollah, gone. Assad, gone. That means the Shia influence game is beginning to wane. It's beginning to end. The Houthis are basically isolated down there in Yemen. The Shia regime in Iran still has impact in Iraq, but internally they are much, much, much weaker right now. So the border countries, what are they doing? Turkey is doing incursions into northern Syria. They were probably behind much of what's going on right now. They're attempting to grab territory in northern Syria. They're creating their own buffer zone. They're attempting to encroach on Kurdish territory, again, in the northeast of the country. Meanwhile, Israel in the south has the Golan Heights. And anybody, by the way, who thought that it was a good idea for Israel to give up the Golan Heights, yeah, you're an idiot. Okay, it's a good thing Israel has the Golan Heights. Otherwise, you'd have Sunni terrorists sitting up top over the Lake Tiberias and firing down into the valley in Israel. Okay, so Israel controls that area. They've been moving up into their own buffer zone over at Mount Hermon, which is in Syria. It's kind of the strategic height of the region. Okay, meanwhile, again, you have the Syrian government, which has now abdicated. They are turning over control to this rebel alliance. Unclear exactly what's going to result, because again, you still have all of these players on the ground who are fighting one another. They may be united against Assad, but now Assad is gone. So Assad's family is out. The rebels, again, arrived in Damascus. Meanwhile, you have the Kurds who are still controlling a large swath of territory. What does it really mean? It means that Russia is weak. Iran is weak. These were paper tigers. And their attempts to invade Ukraine and invade Israel, respectively, those went really poorly for them. What you are watching is the complete collapse of the Russian-Iranian alliance in Syria, and it is indicative of the interior weakness of these countries, which is something to remember going forward. President Biden said this is the first time ever either Russia nor Iran or Hezbollah could defend a foreign regime in Syria. This is the direct result of the blows Ukraine and Israel delivered. This is what he said in a statement. No thanks to Joe Biden, by the way, who's continuing to slow walk weapons to both Ukraine and also to Israel. So if it had been up to Joe Biden, presumably those allies never would have been properly armed. But it is a very good thing and indicative, again, of the weakness of Russia and Iran, what has happened in Syria. Now, net, I think it'll probably be a good thing. But there are no great things in the Middle East. It just doesn't exist. A lot of bad people in a lot of areas in the Middle East. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens next. Man, it's going to be very difficult to sort of see and foresee what happens from here on in, because there are just too many competitive groups. Many of them are terrorists on all sides of the aisle. And so everybody who's sort of happy talking this thing, it's a day of liberty and freedom in Syria. Just hold your horses. It's certainly not a day of liberty and freedom for many of the Christians who are living in Syria. Unfortunately, it is not a day of liberty and freedom, I think, for pretty much anybody who's living in Syria, but it wasn't in the first place. It turns out, as always in the Middle East, a lot of bad answers to a lot of very difficult questions. We'll see you here tomorrow. I'll recap all of this. I'll bring maps. I'll show you the whole thing. We'll see you tomorrow.
In one of your more infamous debates, you said, "I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are."
Yes.
My argument is not that terms like biological female or biological male are necessarily offensive. My argument is that you are saying that referring to a trans woman as a woman or a trans man as a man or et cetera, is like inherently offensive or threatens biology. And I'm curious why it's so threatened when there's clear precedent for changing the language.
Again, the term mother does not include father. Every category has to have boundaries. The boundary of female starts at male. And when you start including male in the category of female, you are threatening biological definitions as well as basic truth.
Well, you could say the category of mother starts at conception or, a biological relation to an offspring. But as we know...
But again, the idea that the idea of motherhood being the act of mothering, right? And that is a female. A female does the act of mothering. You can say that a female who does the act of mothering is a mother, but you also have a special category called biological motherhood. I'm not going to say that an adoptive mom and a biological mom have precisely the same definition. They don't. They're underneath a subset of category called motherhood. That motherhood sometimes involves birth, sometimes it does not, but it certainly involves being a female.
What do you think about the distinction between cis women and trans women?
Explain.
Well, you're saying that a more inclusive usage of the word mother isn't particularly offensive because we also have biological mother.
Yes.
We've offered the term cis woman and even biological woman or assigned female at birth. We've offered a variety of terms that properly categorize people.
Again, you cannot extend the term woman to apply to a biological male. Every category has an endpoint. If there are only two categories, male and female, and you say that female now is in this category, there are no definitions. There are no definitions. I mean, to paraphrase my friend Matt Walsh, I'm going to need you to explain what a woman is without reference to the word woman. We can go on all day like this, but...
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily circular to say that a woman is someone who exhibits womanhood.
Yes, it is.
And that...
It's definitionally circular.
Well...
That's like saying a hand is something that fundamentally shows handhood.
Well, what I have
a tree is something that demonstrates the qualities of treehood. What new actual definitional content have you added to the word?
I can define womanhood for you, which is a set of characteristics associated with females, and a woman as someone who exhibits said womanhood.
Okay, well, you have just used the word female and woman to define each other. So you say a woman is a female, but not a biological female. A female is a woman, and a woman is a female, but at no point have you added any new content.
No, I said a woman is someone who exhibits womanhood, and womanhood is a set of characteristics.
Yes, and that doesn't mean anything.
Why does, how does it not mean
the reason
anything?
It doesn't mean... Okay, again, a dog is a thing that exhibits the characteristics of doghood. It's a set of characteristics characterized by being a dog. I've added no content to that. If you have no idea what a dog is, you still have no idea what a dog is.
There are plenty of labels that refer to concepts. This is not a new thing.
It's not a label referring to a concept. It's a label that's referring to the same word as the concept. You can't do that. That's fundamentally circular.
To the same word. I'm saying that womanhood...
You have not defined even womanhood. You said a set of characteristics that applies to females, and then you're applying it to males. So clearly this is nonsensical. I'm sorry that it doesn't. I'm sorry that your attempts to worm a definition into nonsense are not succeeding. But like, I can't make that fit into logic because it doesn't. I mean, I'm sorry. I talk about preborn a lot on this show. I believe in their mission. I know you do too. Who wouldn't want to help moms and their kids in crisis? Preborn is the largest provider of free ultrasounds in the United States. They connect with women who are considering abortion, offer them a free ultrasound so they can hear their child's heartbeat. This divine connection has proven to double the probability that a mom will choose to carry her child to term. Every day, Preborn's network of clinics saves 200 babies' lives. But it doesn't stop there. They offer moms maternity clothes, doctor visits, and the support they need to raise a child after giving birth. It's an incredible organization I am proud to stand behind. You can support Preborn right now with a gift of just $28. This will cover the cost of one free ultrasound and could save the life of an unborn child. It's the most important thing you're going to do today. To donate, just dial pound 250, say keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby, or donate securely at preborn.com/Ben. Again, that's preborn.com/Ben. Go check them out right now. Preborn.com/Ben. Start saving a life. Just takes $28. Preborn.com/Ben.
Hey, Ben. This week in Israel, they reported that like 76% of Israelis thought that Netanyahu should step down. And I'm curious, like, because Israel doesn't have a figurehead like Zelensky to rally around, is Netanyahu doing more harm than good? Also, I'm curious if you would have on Dean Phillips for a Sunday special.
So I'm not really aware of Dean Phillips other than he's running against Biden, right? That's the guy. I didn't hear of him until he ran against Biden. So sure, I guess why not? I mean, sure, okay. But in any case, as far as Netanyahu, the reason that Israelis are very anti-Netanyahu is that Israelis actually are reacting the way that I would hope that Americans reacted to bad presidents, which is when a president fails, they get very angry at it. So this is the single greatest security failure in Israeli history. And so even a lot of people who voted for Netanyahu in Israel are now very anti-Netanyahu. Now, the way that it works in Israel is because they have a coalition government. They actually have to have a vote of no confidence, and then a majority has to vote Netanyahu out. That's not going to happen right now. But whenever people on the left or in the media start talking about the right-wing Netanyahu government, that's ridiculous and ignorant, considering that right now they have a unity government that includes Benny Gantz, who's on the center left. Right? The fact is that Israel has come together in incredible ways in the after. It reminds me of 9/11 in the United States. Like, people came together for a hot second here. I think it's going to last a lot longer there, because the truth is that as devastating as 9/11 was for the United States, Israel's a much, much smaller country. And so in terms of sort of the feeling of insecurity, they're also surrounded on every border by people who don't like them very much. And so I think that the future of the state of Israel is going to be a lot more unified. But yeah, I mean, Netanyahu's going to take a serious political hit at some point in the future.
What about, like, internationally?
I mean, internationally, I think people are looking for an excuse to be putting pressure on Israel, because the easiest solution is always weapons down, everybody calm down, a few Jews got killed, but whatever, we don't want this thing to escalate. The reality is what is in the best interest of pretty much everybody, except for the Iranians, is for Hamas to be destroyed completely and utterly. That's in the best interest of the Europeans. It's in everybody's best interest, including, by the way, Sunni governments.
Hi there. All right, so Wisconsin was in like a $7 billion budget, and yet a lot of the smaller two-year trade schools in the UW system and like four-year engineering schools are losing money. They're firing people. They're like leaving, getting less students. And this is because the Republican legislature, didn't increase funding. They decreased it in hopes to get rid of the DEI department. I go here. DEI department's like not that big of a deal. Like, if you want to go, you can. If you don't want to go, you can kind of just avoid it. Is it really worth like lowering educational opportunities for people, raising tuitions, and decreasing enrollment in like very important trade schools for the purpose of like ending DEI at a school where the value is still going to be here?
So you're asking the wrong guy. I think that every major university in the United States should cut its entire liberal arts department and tell people to get a life. Meaning that
there's smaller universities though that.
I understand. Yeah. My feeling about college is very simple. If you are able to get somebody to give you a loan to go to the school because they feel that your degree is then going to allow you a higher earning level, then that seems to me a good use of dollars. Subsidizing people's education where a bank would not very often is a giant waste of money. And so the amount of money that's wasted in state schooling systems so that people can get a degree in lesbian dance theory or whatever is silly. And furthermore, if you're majoring in engineering, so to give you an example, I was able to get private loans to go to Harvard Law School. Why? Because they knew when I got out of the other end of Harvard Law School, I was going to earn a bunch of money because I went to Harvard Law School. Okay, the same thing isn't necessarily true if you're majoring in poli-sci at a state school, right? You're still, dude, I majored in poli-sci too. There we go, bro. So here's the, So here's the thing. You're going to finish up in poli-sci, and then you're going to go to a real school doing real things.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're probably going to go to law school, or you're going to go work in business, or you're going to get an apprenticeship somewhere. And here's the reality. The entire college system is a credentialing scam. Unless you are in the hard sciences, the entire college system should be done away with, and people should go directly into the workforce where they learn how to do a job.
Yeah. So if you want me to like go back, I can. I feel like you didn't fully answer my question because I'm more saying I agree with you that like trade schools are really important for a community, but I'm saying that the smaller ones rely on like the subsidies from the government to stay afloat, and they're currently not getting it because of like this like moral war between like Robin Voss and the Republicans and the Tony Evers about like, you know, DEI here. I feel like there's a ton of people who don't really care and they want to go to a smaller school in their hometown and learn how to do a trade.
I hear you.
And
I'm just saying I'm more extreme than the Republican legislature, and I would slash and burn my way through the college budgets.
Fair enough. All right. All right. Hey, you have a good one.
Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.